Progress.
We're up to Daf Lamed Vav Amid Aleph. The last thing we did was Asi ben Yehuda added that women are not prohibited; they're allowed to what's the lashon? They're allowed to shave their to pull their bald spot. From morning, there's no isser. What's the reason why there's no isser? What's the makar that it's mutter? Because the pasuk says banim atem la'Hashem leikeichem banim v'loy banos. Fine. New Gemara. A couple other reasons. Abaya says he has his own interpretation. He doesn't say banim. He has a different shot. Abaya Omar Hainu Tam Deisi. This is the reason of Asi. Damar Karcha Bnei Aaron. It says by the Bnei Aaron like Simu Karcha. And we know that, again, this has to do with yesterday's Gemara. He believes that when the pasuk starts off in the beginning of Emor, Dabra el Bnei Aaron, that's talking about the entire parsha is only men and not women. So not just the first halacha of contaminating to the mesim, but shaving the beard and karcha, the beginning of Lamed Vav and Aleph. So the beginning of Lamed Vav. About Hainu time of the Asi. The Gomer karcha Bnei Aaron. That he says like this, that it says by the parsha the Kehanim Bnei Aaron. He feels that that's going on the entire paragraph. Everything in that paragraph is men and not women. In there it says karcha, which means the isser of making yourself balding, whatever, making yourself bald, a bald spot from mourning is only for men and not for women by the Kehanim. So malala noshim peturis avkan noshim peturis. And so it's basically, this is the flow. We had this a little bit yesterday. The pasuk, he interprets the pasuk as Bnei Aaron referring to the entire parsha, meaning the pasuk is explicitly saying daughters of Kehaneses, female Kehanim, are allowed to make themselves bald. How do I know the regular population? That's karcha. Okay, here's the problem. We had this yesterday. If you believe that the pasuk is referring to the male Kehanim and not the female Kehanim, so you're telling me explicitly in the pasuk, female Kehanim are allowed to make themselves bald. And now, how do I know the regular population from karcha? What do you need Gzera Shava for? If it's mutter by the daughters of Kehanim, kavachomer, it's mutter by Bas Yisrael. So what do you need a Gzera Shava? Meaning, I understand, you're telling me that the pasuk explicitly is being matter, because that's how you understand Bnei Aaron. The Bnei Aaron is referring to the entire parsha. So that means that you're saying that everything in that paragraph is male and not female, including in that is karcha. So you're telling me explicitly in the pasuk is that a kehenes is allowed to do the isser of leisasimu karcha beinechem. Fine, I understand that. How do I know the regular population? Gzera Shava. What do you need a Gzera Shava for? If it's mutter by a bas koyin, kavachomer, it's mutter by a bas Yisrael. So the Gemara says, Yisfirlan d'chiksiv kra b'chol and yanihu d'chsiv. Nishta kramine, what do you need Gzera Shava for? Tasi kal v'chaymer, make a kal v'chaymer, and I'll make the following argument. Umake hanim shariba and akasav mitzvah seseris b'nei Aaron v'lei b'nei Aaron yisrael lekol shekain. If a bas koyin who it comes from a family that has more kedusha is allowed to make herself bald, so then kal v'chaymer a bas Yisrael. So what do you need Gzera Shava for? So the Gemara says, ilav Gzera Shava havamina hifsakein. I'll tell you why I need the Gzera Shava. Because there's two ways to understand the parsha. When it says Bnei Aaron, it's definitely and again, Bnei Aaron v'lo benos Aaron. So the pasuk is definitely talking about males and not females. The question is, what part of the parsha? There's two ways to look at it. You could look at it dafka, the first pasuk, which is talking about tumah. Only tumah is it the differentiation between male and female. But the rest of the parsha, male and female are the same. They're both prohibited by karcha. Or I could say Bnei Aaron is referring to the entire paragraph. There's two ways to go about it. I need the Gzera Shava to be megala how to understand the parsha. Yes, once I know with 100% certainty that the pasuk that says Bnei Aaron is referring to the entire paragraph and a bas koyin is allowed to make herself bald in mourning, once I know that for sure, of course I would know the general population without a Gzera Shava. I would think of it from a kavachomer. But I don't know that that's how to read the pasuk. There's two ways to read the pasuk. You could read the pasuk as men and women are included in the Isser or not. So the Gzera Shava is telling you, understand the parsha in a way that it's Bnei Aaron and not Bnei Aaron on everything. That's why you need the Gzera Shava. This is very similar to what we had yesterday. So the Gemara says, wait a minute. Hashanami neme hifzakini. I have a different way to read this pasuk. Why don't we do this? So basically, what's the flow so far? We're understanding the pasuk by Bnei Aaron is the entire paragraph is male and not female, which means women, Eishes Kayanim, are allowed to make themselves bald in mourning. And then the Gzera Shava is extending it to the general population. I have a different way to read the pasuk. I'll do this. I say you read the pasuk that the only differentiation between men and women is tumah. When it comes to karcha, all kehaneses are aser, and the general population is also aser. Everyone's aser. Women also. What about the Gzeir Shava, which connects the Kohanim to the general population regarding Karcha? I have a different Gzeir Shava. Again, the Gzeir Shava connects it. So we're understanding that it's saying that Eishes Kohanim are mutter, and then the Gzeir Shava makes it the general population, women are also mutter. I have a different option. I want to say that all women are aser. And what's the Gzeir Shava? The Gzeir Shava is used for something else. It's very similar to what we had yesterday, and that is, the pasuk describes the isser of making yourself bald by Kohanim, and it says by the general population. And the reason why you need a Gzeir Shava is not potentially to say that women are permitted by both. You need the general population to clarify the isser. You see, by the Kohanim, and by the Kohanim it says Leisasimu karcha beinei nechem. That's between the eyes. It's over here. How do you know that it's not over here? It's on the head, because by the general population it says berosham, and by the general population it says lemeis, that you're doing it for mourning. And how do you know by Kohanim also? Meaning, Kohanim and the general population are sort of half of a puzzle, and you need it together to put it together to get a general picture. It's what we had yesterday with the shaving. That by the general population it said hashchasa, and by the Kohanim it says giluach. You put it together, it means shaving with a blade. So it's the same thing over here. Maybe really women are not allowed to leisasimu karcha. So what's the purpose of the Gzeir Shava connecting Kohanim to the general population? To clarify what the Isser is. The Gemara says, let's see it inside. Why don't we argue like this? Really, women are not allowed to do karcha. So what's the Gzeir Shava then? If women are not allowed to, then what's the purpose of the Gzeir Shava connecting Kohanim regarding karcha to the general population? You need it for the following brisa. It says like this. Lo yikruchu. The pasuk says, Lo yikruchu. You don't make a bald spot on their head. Let's say I make 4 or 5 bald spots. How many lashes do I get? I might think you only get 1 lashes. Tamalemer karcha, the extra hey. The pasuk says karcha. The extra word karcha is extra to tell you l'chayev al kol kachas v'achas. You chayev a set of lashes for each bald spot. Keep going. B'roisham matam. What do you see with the word b'roisham on their head? The pasuk says by the general Jews, not by the Kohanim. It says by the general Jews not to do karcha bein einechem, between your eyes. Lemeis. Now, how do I know that bein einechem is the top of the head? You might think that it's only us to make a bald spot between the eyes, meaning on the scalp. Above the, meaning like obviously, listen, you can't make a bald spot between your eyes. There's no hair there, but it means maybe only the top of the head that's between the eyes, right over here, like the makamat tefillin. Menayin l'rabis kol rosh. How do I know that the entire head is prohibited? So if I pulled a bald spot from the back of my head, how do I know that that's also aser? Tamalim beresham. It says the word by kehanim beresham. L'chayv al rosh kebenenayin. Now, I only know this is true, that it's a bald spot is prohibited on the entire head by Kehanim. Yisol min Allah, nemer kan karcha, v'nemer lon karcha. Ma kan chayv kol achas karcha v'karcha chayv al rosh ben enayim. Avalon chayv kol karcha v'karcha chayv al rosh ben enayim. U'malon al mes, avkan al mes. Basically, what you're doing is this Gzeir Shava is used for the following. It's telling you that by Kehanim, it's aser the whole head. It's aser the whole head. And it's also lames, so too by the general population. So basically, you have 2 halves of the picture. It says beresham by the general by the Kohanim. It says beinenecha by the general population. You put it together, it means beresham. And it says mace by the general population. It doesn't say mace by the Kohanim. So it shows by Kohanim, it's only aser if it's lames. Basically, you have this Gzeir Shava saying like that. So how do you know the Gzeir Shava is telling you that women are permitted by both? Maybe this is what the Gzeir Shava is coming for. The Gemara says, "Im kein nichtav karach, my karcha shamina tarti." The answer is the extra hay tells you 2 Gzeir Shavas, meaning 1 Gzeir Shava. If the purpose of the Gzeir Shava was just coming to tell you the details of the bald spot, it would say kerach. The extra hay tells you women are permitted by both. Okay. So you have a second source. Again, Asi ben Yehuda says that women are allowed to make themselves bald when it comes to mourning. Yesterday's source was because it says banim atem, banim v'loy banis. Abaya says it's from the Gzeir Shava from Kohanim. And Rava says, Hainu time de Asi, y'all beinei nechem mitfillin. He says, I'll tell you why, there's a Gzeir Shava connecting the word beinei nechem by bald spot and beinei nechem by tefillin. Ma'alala nashim peturas, avkan nashim peturas. Just like by tefillin women are potter, so too by the bald spot women are potter. 3 sources. Okay. Now the Gemara says, Rava my time and Lamer Abaya. Why does Rava not like Abaya's pshat? He says, Karach mashmale. Because if you remember the whole arichas we just had with Abaya's basic shtickle Torah is that there's two gzeir shavas. One is from the word karach, and the one is from the extra hay. Rava doesn't see the extra hay as telling you that much, so he doesn't like that. Abaya my time and Lamer Rava. Oh, but what's the problem with Rava's pshat? Again, what's Rava's pshat? It says, Loisa simu karcha bein einechem. You shall not make a bold spot bein einechem, and it says to put tefillin on bein einechem. So just like women are exempt from tefillin, so too women are exempt from karcha. So why does Abaya not like that? Why does Abaya not like that? So Amar Lach, tefillin gufayu mehacha gamerla. Malalon makam shaysin karcha begavel shorosh. Av kan makam anacha begavel shorosh. I'll tell you, Abaya says, what's Rava's point? Rava's point is it says bein einechem by bald spot, and it says bein einechem by tefillin, connecting the two. What halacha? Just like women are exempt, so too women are exempt from tefillin, so too the women are exempt from karcha. Abaya doesn't like that. Why? Because Abaya uses the drasha for something else. He says, you know what the drasha is teaching you? How do you know that tefillin is supposed to be at the top of the head? It says, and we all know that the Karaites, they would put the tefillin over here. So how do I know that you're supposed to tefillin on the top of your head? So Abaya says it's from this pasuk. It says, Loisa simu karcha bein einechem, and that's an Isser bald spot, not in eyes. It's obviously there's no hair there, so it's obviously the top of the head. So to by tefillin. So he says, I can't say like Rava that says the connection is to tell you just like women are exempt from tefillin, so to women are karcha. He's saying no. Exactly. He's like, I'm using the pasuk the opposite. I'm learning tefillin now from karcha, not reverse. And therefore he says you can't say like Rava. Now, this next Gemara is a very, very beautiful Agadita Gemara. It's one of the more famous Agadita Gemaras in all of Shas. It says, "Ubein la'Abaya, bein la'Rava, haybonim atem haydorish." Right? Again, we had yesterday. The last part of yesterday was that the first understanding of Asi ben Yehuda that women are allowed to make themselves bald because it says bonim atem, bonim v'lei bonus. Abaya and Rava give their own interpretations. So, what do Abaya and Rava do with the word bonim? This is a famous Gemara that Klal Yisrael are considered bonim even when they sin. They're bonim atem la'Hashem. They're always bonim. The Gemara says, "B'boy at the Tanya, you need it for the following brisa: bonim atem la'Hashem lekeichem." So it's a machlokes tanoim. When are Klal Yisrael considered children of Hashem? So the pasuk says, "You're a child." Bisman shatem noyigim minig bonim atem kurim bonim. Ein atem noyigim minig bonim. Ein atem kurim bonim. Did Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yehuda is a very strict view, and that is that Klal Yisrael are only called the children of Hashem when we act like a child. If we act rebellious, then we're no longer called a child. It's Rabbi Yehuda. But Rav Meir famously said, "Ben kachu ben kach aturim kohen bon." No, Rav Meir says you're always considered a child. Shenemar bonim sechalim heima. They're foolish children, meaning even when they're foolish, they're children. Va'omer bonim leuman bam. Furthermore, they're children who don't have any faith, meaning even when they don't have faith, they're children. And the last one is zera mereim bonim ashchisim. They're children. They're zera mereim. They're seeds of evildoers. Bonim ashchisim, children that are corrupt. Even when they're corrupt, they're considered children. Oimer, the last one is v'hayim makam asher lehem loy ami atem yerm lehem b'nei kalchai. The pasuk says that instead of saying they're not my people, you have to say they're the children of the living God, the sons of the living God. So he quotes Rav Meir feels very strongly bonim atem l'Hashem lekeichem is no matter what they're always considered bonim, and he brought 3 psukim for this. Now the Gemara is going to explain this is different levels. The Gemara explains, why did Rav Meir bring so many psukim? Because this is the evolution, the evolution. Basically, it's like this. Rav Meir wants to prove that Klal Yisrael are always considered banim. So he brings a pasuk that says they're foolish. Even when they're foolish, they're considered my children. But I only know that they're considered my children when they're foolish. What if Klal Yisrael has no faith? Are they still considered banim? That's the second pasuk. Loy uman bam. That even when they don't have faith, they're still banim. But now take it a step further. What about if Klal Yisrael does avodah zara? Maybe then they're definitely not called children. That's the last pasuk. Zera mereim bonim ashchisim. Even bonim ashchisim, even when they're mashchis, when they're corrupt and they're doing idolatry, they're considered children. But the last stage. So we're still considered children of Hashem even when we do avodah zara. But the pasuk calls them banim ashchisim, corrupt children. How do I know that Hashem will still call us just children? Right? It's one thing to call you a corrupt child. But how do I know that Kadosh Baruch Hu will call you a regular child, that we're still called children, straight up, regular children, even when we do Avodah Zarah? That's the last part of the pasuk, that they're considered the children of Hashem. Okay, from here into the end of the daf, it's actually very, very quick and very, very easy, Baruch Hashem, because it's late. The Mishnah is listing things that women are exempt. This is related to karbanos. So the Mishnah says, smicha, which is the concept of leaning on a carbon. Women are exempt. Women do not do smicha. Vatnufas, and waving a carbon. Women do not do this. Va'agashis, and bringing the carbon mincha to the mizbeach. Now, this next part of the Mishnah are listing all avodas of kehanim. So I can't do this either. But women definitely can't do this. Meaning even a bas kohen is not allowed to serve in the Beis Hamikdash. She can't do hagasha, to bring the carbon to the mizbeach. Hakmitzas, to do the kmitza of the mincha, they can't do. Haktaris, burning the sacrifice on the mizbeach. Malika, which is the shchita of burnt offerings, they're not allowed to do. Kabbalah, receiving the blood, they're not allowed to do. Hazah, sprinkling of the blood, they're not allowed to do. All of these do not apply to women. The only exception is chutz me mincha soita unazira, except for the mincha offering of the soita and the nazira, shehem menifais. That's the only time where a woman does the tnufa of the waving of the carbon, is when they bring their own carbon soita and carbon nazira. That's the only time they do it. But in general, women do not do a tnufa. When they bring a shlamim, they do not do a tnufa. Let's just run through. It's all just psukim. Smicha. The first thing that women does not apply to women is smicha, is leaning on a carbon. D'chsiv dabral b'nei Yisrael v'samach. B'nei Yisrael samcha v'b'nei Yisrael samcha. The passage is b'nei Yisrael. B'nei Yisrael v'nei Yisrael. Okay, keep going. Tenufas, waving, is only done by men. Dabral b'nei Yisrael v'heinif. B'nei Yisrael menif v'b'nei Yisrael menif. Same thing. B'nei Yisrael v'lei b'nei Yisrael. Let's keep going. Hagashis, bringing the mincha to the mizbeach. The kohen has to bring the carbon to the mizbeach. That's also considered not allowed to be done by women. Again, all of it says b'nei Aaron v'loy b'nei Aaron. Kamitza. How do I know that kamitza is not allowed to be done by a female? Heviu el b'nei Aaron v'kamatz b'nei Aaron v'loy b'nei Aaron. Haktaris, to be maktir, to burn the offering on the mizbeach. K'tiroi said b'nei Aaron v'loy b'nei Aaron. Malikas, d'chsiv, u'malak v'hiktir, iskish malik laktar. How do I know the malika is not allowed to be done by a female? Because it says in the pasuk, u'malak v'hiktir. There's a connection between the malika and the burning. Just like the burning has to be done by a male, so to the malika must be done by a male. Hakabalas, receiving the blood. D'chsiv, v'hikrivu b'nei Aaron. It says the blood shall be received by b'nei Aaron. V'amar, go to the next page. V'krivu zu kabbalas adam. V'krivu, that's considered kabbalas adam. So v'krivu b'nei Aaron v'loi b'nei Aaron. Hazos. Now, the sprinkling of the blood must be done by male kehan. The Gemara wants to know sprinkling of which carbon. Hazod dehecha. Now, which carbon is it referring to sprinkling? Now, yeah. So this is, the Gemara could have just said all carbonas, like a chata. So the Gemara feels that it wants to say an added chiddush. So the Gemara says hazod dehecha. What type of sprinkling? Ida para. Let's say it's the sprinkling of the blood of the paraduma. Right, after you burn the paradum, you take the blood, and the kohen would sprinkle it towards the Beis Hamikdash by harazesim. So that cannot be done by a female. The problem is that can't be done by anybody outside of the kohen gadol. Elazar ksivba, that has to be done by the kohen gadol, because the pasuk said that Elazar had to do it. So you're telling me that women can't do it? I mean, regular kehanim can't do that either. So I need the Mishnah to tell me women can't do it. Of course, women can't do it. But they have to be kohen gadol. Okay, idafnim. Let's say it's the sprinkling inside the. This is the sprinkling of the chatas by the kohen gadol. In parhalam davar shel tzibur, which is sprinkled in the kodesh hakdashim. Hakohen mashuch. Again, the problem is that's the kodesh hakdashim. Forget about women. Regular kahanim can't enter there. So what's the chiddush of women? So ella hazad ben oif. Rather, it's the sprinkling of a bird carbon. Hazad ben oif. Now, this Rashi says is specifically talking about the ben oif of a chatas. The pasuk says about the bird chatas, v'hiza midam hachatas. What's the source that women can't do it? Aisi b'kavachomer ben son. It's learned out from a kavachomer from a sheep. Uma ben son shalei kavalei koyin l'shchitasei kavalei koyin l'hazasei. Yeah, when it comes to the pasuk says by the zrika, by the sprinkling of the blood, let's say of a sheep, it says v'zarku b'nei Aaron v'lei b'nei Aaron. Yeah, so males have to do it. Now, who's allowed to shecht the regular carbon? A Yisrael can shecht the regular carbon. So the regular carbon, which could be shechted by a male, cannot be sprinkled by females. But a bird carbon, which the malika, which is the shechita, has to be done by a kohen and not by a female. Kal v'chomer can't be sprinkled by a female. So basically, this is the kal v'chomer. If a regular carbon, which could be shechted by a Yisrael, has to be sprinkled by a male kohen, so the bird carbon, which has to do malika by a male kohen, not even a Yisrael, kal v'chomer, the sprinkling must be done by a male kohen and not a female person. Okay. The only exceptions, we'll end with this, the only exceptions for the tenufa is a Nazira's mincha and a soita's mincha. So the Gemara says, Minalan, Amar le Rav Elazar le Rav Yoshia Dedari. Rav Elazar said to Rav Yoshia of his generation, don't sit down until you tell me the following thing. How do I know that a mincha of a soita requires waving? So the Gemara says, what do you requires waving? The pasuk says, "Minolan v'heinif es minchasa." The pasuk says you have to. What do you mean? What's the source? It's a pasuk. Ela tenufa b'baylim minolan. How do I know that the tenufa of the mincha is done by the owner? Meaning, the pasuk says that it's waved. How do I know that it's waved by the woman? How do I know that it's not waved by the kohen? I see a yad mishlamim. The answer is because it says yad by this carbon. It says yad by shlamim. Ksiv hach v'lokach koyin mi'ara yisha, ksiv hasim yoda teviyenu, ma kan koyin af lalon koyin, ma lalon bailin af kan bailin. Now, by the shlamim, but over here, it says v'lokach ha-koyin mi'ara yisha, which implies the yad is the koyin, and it says by the shlamim yad. Now, by the shlamim, it's the owner who waves it. But here, it's the koyin. So what do? We say we put it together. Both cases need the kohen and the owners to wave it. How so? Haketzad kohen machnes yadai tachas yad bailum menif. The way it would work by the shlamim and by the soita is that they would put the shlamim in the hand of the owner, and the kohen would put his hands under it, and they would wave together. That was done by the soita as well. This is the source that a soita, that a woman waves the carbon because she's the baal regarding the soita. Ashkechin soita, nazir and minalan. And how do I know the same halach applies to nazira, that when she brings her carbon, her mincha, she also waves it? I see a kaf misaita. It says kaf by a soita, it says kaf by a nazira. Just like by the soita, she waves it, so too by a nazira, she waves it as well. I will stop here. That was